All right, so we're starting out with the Sicilian defense here from FuuuDat, e5 c or e4 c5. This didn't transition over. There we go. We have e4 c5. TiKevin's screen is not showing up here properly, and TiKevin refutes with c4. Oh, he moved his camera. That's why his camera is not in the place I expected. So we are now going even more down. Even more down, what the heck does that mean? So, yes, we have... It's a pretty even matchup so far. It's basically a mirrored position. And that's an interesting move from Dev. Yeah, he just kind of gives up a pawn there for free. A little unfortunate, but, you know, what can you do? Oh, and that's also a free bishop. That is a free bishop. So he's given up a free pawn and a free bishop in succession. Kind of not a good position so far for FuuuDat. He's going to want to develop these pieces over here, get them out so that he can castle. His queenside is completely shot right now. TiKevin, on the other hand, he just needs to start developing his pieces. Again, try to figure out a time to castle. Make sure that he does not hang this queen. It's unprotected right now. Don't want it to get kind of locked in over there. That's an okay move. It frees up his dark square bishop. Probably ideas to bring it out here to e3. FuuuDat retreats his knight, attacking the queen. So probably need to drop the queen back here. Either a3 or a4 with the queen is fine. Queen b5 is also another option, but the other two are definitely better options. He does need to move the queen, though. So, and he does drop it back to a4, continuing to put pressure on the king. And FuuuDat, he needs to start developing his queenside pieces here. That move is fine. This basically keeps he can't take this piece because of the rook, because of the queen. Okay, and so he goes f4, takes there. Just a pawn trade. It does develop his dark squared bishop safely, pointing over here at the knight. Again, at this point, it might be better for him to castle queenside. He does kind of have a little bit of a wall here with his pieces. Whereas over here, it's really kind of questionable. Okay, so pawn to g6, kind of a wasted move. He really needs to develop these pieces so that he can castle. This also breaks down, so that's going to be a trade here probably. Yep. So he does take with the rook. Again, you cannot take that pawn. Be very aware of that. He develops the knight to f3, putting more pressure on this square. Nice move there by FuuuDat, bringing in the rook and getting it onto the second rank. This could be potentially dangerous at some point. Oh, he just blundered his queen. That's unfortunate from TiKevin there. He does try to attack here. But at this point, he can just bring the rook back. This is now a winning position for black, who still has his queen, and that's also an option as well. Taking a pawn there. This pawn is currently defended, so he can't take anything else. He can't take this pawn either because of that. So basically, if he wants to escape, he's got to do this. But in the meantime, it's kind of safe right now. He continues to push the pawn here. TiKevin asking for a rook trade. Probably not good from his position, considering that he is down material. So he does take the rook trade. And this is cleanly winning for black. Now, he doesn't have any of his pieces developed here. However, the fact that he has a queen kind of makes this a bit more questionable. It's like he's got these three pieces and he's just up a straight queen. So these are equal. It is 6 pawns to 5, but that only matters if one of them can get down the board. There are no passed pawns on the board. These pawns are weak, but they're kind of just hanging out over there. He needs to probably develop this out. He needs to get his rook into play right now. He goes for the check, but that's a dead knight here. If FuuuDat does see it. Let's take a look at TiKevin's stream and see what he's thinking about right now. Kind of stoic, not really saying too much here. So we will bring it back over to the live chessboard. So TiKevin has just traded his knight. This is looking very, very bad for white. Assuming he doesn't blunder, this should be a win for the black pieces for the third time in 3 games. But yeah, right now it's just very solidly winning for black here. Probably he moves his king, I guess, to open up this the bishop on this diagonal. And this is now technically a mating pattern. This is now mate in 9. If he goes to queen e3, and then the king theoretically would need to move to d1. No longer a mating pattern with that move. Continuing to block in his rook. Not really knowing. He's trying to trade off the queen for the rook. Probably not the best idea to go for that. If you are a gamer dev, you could do it just to simplify, but I wouldn't trade a queen for a rook unless you actually had a good reason to do so. Queen e3 continues to be the best move here, putting pressure on the king, probably forcing it to move to d1. You could also go to g1 as well here, and try forcing it up the board. Really, just moving the queen here. As long as you do not take the rook and you move the queen, and you don't put your queen in any sort of line of fire. Yeah, he just blundered his queen, and FuuuDat is still winning. He's up a full knight here, but yeah, he does take the rook here, bringing his bishop in, but it's much more unclear now with that move. This knight is stuck. It cannot move to either of these positions because of these plays right here. This bishop can maybe attack here, but it doesn't really matter. The white king just needs to move to a light-colored square. Probably idea here to bring the knight in and start attacking like this. I have a feeling that that'll be his next... Nope, he moves his pawn up to d6. And up the board comes the white king. He can't really do anything here because his squares are blocked. So he will need to do something about that bishop. My thought is that, and there is a rook move here. Yep, I had a feeling this would happen. He's probably going to need a retreat here. If he does take, the king takes. And that makes this position much more questionable. Now, FuuuDat is pretty new to the game of chess. If he knows checkmating patterns with a rook and king, you know, he is down on the clock a little bit. He does have under 4.5 minutes now. TiKevin is at 8.5 minutes left. He's been making moves quickly, if not accurately, I suppose. FuuuDat does need to move back here. He does. Probably the best idea here is to bring the bishop over here. He kind of put pressure on this knight. This king would need to basically stay to protect the knight. There's not really much, and that's a fine move too. Putting pressure on the rook. The rook really can't do anything from this position because, oh no, dude, oh, and now this becomes much more questionable. It's basically just now there's the bishop and the knight compared to the bishop. We have an equal number of pawns on the board. This is a game, folks. If the bishop comes here, oh, that's not a great trade here. Not a great trade. That's losing a pawn straight up for white. Yep. Or he could just try pushing it, is an option. However, this would be a passed pawn he would need to protect over here. He moves the bishop. I have a feeling this is the next move. And white cannot do anything. He cannot take it because of the bishop. So this is he cannot take this. He cannot take this, or this is a completely losing position for white. Okay, so he does try to go after this pawn. He should push this pawn here. Or he can bring the bishop over here. Okay, so he brings in the knight to protect. Remember that this bishop is still protecting the d1 square, so this pawn cannot promote without being taken here, and this bishop cannot protect it on the d1 square because it is the dark square bishop. So he's going to need to have the knight come in to protect it somehow. And that's probably the best move here. Attacking the knight. Yep. Working your way up the board. This pawn is now a passed pawn, technically. So keep that in mind here. Yeah. Push the pawn once, I think, is probably the best move. He brings the bishop back. Probably not a good move. This, he cannot take because of that there. You need to take that pawn. He does not. Push the pawn. Push the pawn, take the bishop. The bishop needs to move here. Bishop needs to move here, but he cannot get to the pawn. So, despite the fact that black is winning, there is this is questionable. He has to take the pawn here is really the answer, and he doesn't. This could be big. This could be a big play. White needs to continue to push the pawn because this is really the only way that white is going to make any sort of headway into this. Black needs to move here. That's black's only option. He needs to protect against that pawn push. He moves there. The king moves. Oh no! What are you doing? No! No! That's a queen! That's a queen! And white all of a sudden is in control here. My goodness. And now it's on. White idea is to play here, put check on the king, and the king can start moving itself. If he goes here, going here gets the king into position. And if the queen is here, can then attack the knight here. Now you do need to be careful. Okay, that's a good move. This is a good move because it forks these two pieces. This bishop is dead to rights. It has nothing protecting it. It cannot protect the king. He has to move the king. The bishop is free. And that's check. And this is all of a sudden white is almost certainly going to win this game. This is now a mate in 8. Just mating patterns now. Okay, he's going to take material. Really what he should do is take the queen, lock the king into this side of the board, these squares over here, and bring the king into checkmate. Okay, he takes with the bishop. That's a fine move. Bring the bishop here and check. Okay, he takes the knight. He needs to be careful that he does not put this in stalemate. This is the only way that I believe that FuuuDat will be able to get any points out of this game. This is very much a losing position, and I don't see any way that he can win from this position unless white somehow let the king, not even that, the king would have to come around this way or actually he would have to do this in order to get these pawns to get past. Okay, blocking off this diagonal. Now, this is mate in 1. Queen h8 is mate in 1. Now we'll TiKevin83 it because this is blocked here. And then his squares, he does not see it. Is mate in 2. At this point, probably we'll just move the king back. Again, this is mate in 1 with queen h8. His escape squares would then be blocked here. He moves the queen to c1. I guess we'll see how long this lasts. If he does move, he actually can move the king here, which would lose the pawn. All right, now this is much more unclear because he can start escaping this way, but it's still a mate in 5. FuuuDat is down to 1:07 on the clock. He's, at the very least, black is losing on time here. As long as the position isn't stalemated. I don't like that move. Nope, he didn't see, he did not see the, en passant, or he doesn't know about en passant, which is more likely. He needs to be very careful not to stalemate this position. He needs to be extremely careful. This is stalemate if he goes to one of those spots here. Or rather, the king has to move here. This is or here, forced. Bringing the queen up to here would be ideal after that. Or continuing to just kind of corner the king with the white king is also an option. FuuuDat down to 30 seconds on the clock. It's not looking good. He's got to make a move. He's only got 2 options. Down to 15 seconds. Watch your clock, dude. It looks like white's going to win this game on timeout after all of that. Yep, and there it is. TiKevin83 wins on timeout. Crazy back and forth game.